What's good, everybody? You already know what it is, a Pondering Poet series. So, in this episode, I think it's best for me to go ahead and talk about the black man who travels the world, a necessary passion. The black man who travels the world, a necessary passion. So, um, me being a black man, and me being from the United States, a black American man, for that matter. Um, I think probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life was travel to other countries. I've been up to a total of 11 countries now and counting. One of those countries I actually met my fiance, which was probably one of the best things that has ever happened to me in my life. Um, I think the biggest thing when it comes down to black men from the United States specifically, I would say definitely black men as a whole, excuse me, black men as a whole from any country, but black men specifically from the United States. I think one of the biggest things that would benefit us is if we actually traveled outside the United States, outside of this paradigm that inevitably puts us in the disposition of feeling like we are less than or having no level of empowerment in a system like this that essentially uses our degradation to the benefit of a few. Now, for me, I started really doing a lot of traveling back in 2015. I did a lot of work overseas, a lot of security work. Um, I won't go too much into details on that, but the particular security work that I did involved the protection of different embassies around the world. And with my security work, going to different countries, countries like Finland, like Austria, countries like Rwanda, where I met my fiance, countries like Algeria, like Benin, and not only working in those countries, but then also going to other countries, while I was taking leave, taking leave days, countries like Malta, countries like Portugal. Actually, was a great thing. I actually had my 30th birthday in Portugal when I went to Lisbon. I believe that the more human beings interact with others from other cultures, the better they are when it comes down to understanding how to traverse this world and how to get the best out of this world anywhere they go. If you go to another country and you're able to make friends or you're able to communicate with others, doesn't necessarily matter if you don't know how to speak the language, because most countries now this day and age, which is this is something I found out with during my travels, most countries this day and age have many people who speak English, you know. Mind you, for the black man or the black boy, you know, the black adolescent, I would say, um coming from the United States, for them, we are taught. We're taught certain negatives about other places to go. And more so, it's really a campaign or a marketing scheme to keep us in the country so others can more so benefit from the dollars that we make or little dollars that we make from different jobs that inevitably we're working for somebody that really hates us indirectly or intrapersonally. And we really won't know because a lot of that hatred is very, very covert, or it could be very overt, depending on what part of the country you're in when it comes down to the United States. Depending on if you're in the South, or if you're in the North, or if you're in the Midwest, or if you're, West Coast, so on and so forth. But I would say there are a few things that I've gained definitely when it came down to experiencing different cultures, being able to travel. One of the things that I understood is that For me to be able to experience other cultures helps me to understand which cultures are more accepting of me. And what I mean accepting of me, I mean, we already know what's going on right now when it comes down to BLM, Black Lives Matter, that campaign. I don't completely agree with the organization, for several reasons, but I agree with the idea. Black lives do matter, in various ways, especially in the United States, where for so long certain things were kept under wraps or essentially morphed into something else with no reform plan for the ones that have been truly affected by the negative, systematic organizations created and policies created and, laws created in reference to us continuing, and what I mean by us, I mean black people, us continuing to be less than or marginalized. So for me, one of the things I realize, like me traveling to other countries, I now can get an experience of who more so accepts me. And I know not everybody is going to accept me, and everyone is going to accept me at different levels. You know, some will be more accepting, some will be less accepting. But I now can have an understanding of where potentially I could go, where potentially I could retire. You know, I don't I don't have to necessarily exclude myself from other countries because of this idea that, I must have loyalty to a country that was never built for me, but was built by my ancestors, you know? Um, but obviously, that goes in the scope of, well, what is true patriotism? Patriotism is an idea that is created in the scope of ones who are more so able to benefit from this system and be able to have the privileges that they know they're going to be given fully. And can we honestly say that overall, as a whole, about black people within the United States of America? There have been entirely too many examples of us not being able to be privy to the full spectrum of what the American dream is, you know? And I mean, I can name different examples, but that's not the confines of what this episode is about. What this episode is about is black men, black boys, black males being able to travel outside of the paradigm that pushes you to try to be something that you're not. And I believe, and this is something that I convey to my brothers, I believe every black man in the United States of America needs to travel to at least 5 countries in their life, have that on their bucket list. And at least 3 of those countries should be African countries. At least 3. And when I mean African countries, I'm talking about African countries where you more so will see ones that look like you. Because me traveling to Africa, Central Africa, Northern Africa, and West Africa, I've been to 3 African countries so far. Northern Africa is predominantly Arabs, okay? Just flat out, predominantly Arabs, obviously because of history. And West, Central, East, and Southern Africa is ones that are various complexions of us, you know, us. Where there was one time where I took a trip to Finland. I was visiting a friend of mine, and I was going back to one of the locations that I actually work over in Algiers, Algeria. And while I was traveling to the airport, my cab driver, and I'm trying to remember where he was from. I believe he was either from Nigeria or one of those West African countries. I believe it was either Nigeria or the Ivory Coast. Nevertheless, um, I tell him, or he asks me, he's like, "Oh, where are you going?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm about to go back to the country I work." He was like, "Well, what is that country?" I said, it's in Northern Africa." And he was like, "Well, what country is that?" I told him, I told him that it was Algeria, and he said, "Well, Algeria is not Africa." I was like, "What?" He said Algeria is not Africa, and I was like, "Well, why do you say that? It's Northern Africa." And he was like, "Well, we don't consider the Northern African countries a part of Africa because of the invasions that happened back in the day by the Arabs." I was like, damn, okay. And this brother, is about as black as my computer, you know, when it comes down to color. And when I think about it, that's, and being real about it, when it comes down to, human shit, that's kind of fucked up. But, I mean, when you do certain things, sometimes inevitably, based on human interactions, based on interpersonal dynamics, your people, if you've done something or something has been done to you, your people inevitably will understand what happened, and they will hold that. They will continue to hold those people who have done whatever they've done accountable, no matter how long time passes. But oftentimes, the ones who have done what they have done, won't take acknowledgement, won't acknowledge, or become aware of what they've done. I believe that's one of the things that more so has happened in the United States is that our system is a race-based system. And with it being a race-based system, when you come here, you find out very quick which group or which race is seen as better or seen as, if I can say this, the majority, or seen as, well, you have to hang out with this crowd to be able to get certain things. And yeah, you do. But oftentimes that comes with believing in certain ideologies that will put you in a disposition of being a coon. you know um I mean, to explain what a coon is, essentially it's a black person trying to wield the stereotypes of a race that doesn't like them, hates them, and probably wants to kill them. But they do it to be able to gain favor with the ones that are in power, so they can be the ones that are essentially excluded from the level of degradation and the level of diminishing that happens from that group that oppresses. And I believe, when it came down to me traveling, it really opened my eyes. Now, mind you, and I'm going to put this out there, racism is everywhere. It's everywhere. But racism is a system, okay? And a lot of times the racism that is there and that is created, real talk, is based on certain levels of empowerment that have been given over a course of time that continues to happen because you have people who are not empowered, not knowing how to empower themselves in a specific way that the ones that oppress empower themselves. To give a perfect example, finances, money. If you have a certain amount of money, you could be able to do certain things in life. But also, still, depending on who you are and depending on the group that you're a part of, the level of money that you have cannot buy the things that may be necessary for the healing and the improvement of the people that you are a part of, your race, you know? And me traveling, especially to Africa, me traveling completely destroyed my perceptions that were fed to me wrongfully, through the American education system, that were fed to me wrongfully, for me to be able to understand that whatever the fuck that was taught to me was bullshit. Not every African country has literally the whole land mass, all Africans living in huts, with G-strings on, dancing with, sticks. Nah, that's bullshit. Mind you, I learned that shit in elementary school, you know, where a lot of the books that I was given in elementary school, mind you, let me put it in context when it comes down to public, education, or specifically, DCPS. If you know what DCPS is, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. But when it comes down to public education, a lot of the books that are given in public education are like anywhere from like 5 to 10 to 15 years behind the level of education that needs to be given at that moment in time. Now, mind you, I went through elementary school in the 90s. Went through elementary school in the 90s, went through junior high school, you know what I'm saying? Junior high school in the 90s, and then went through high school in the early 2000s. So for me, I wasn't always privy to the level of education needed for me to be able to empower myself. The education in the United States of America as a whole, let alone depending on certain areas that you're in, because obviously, there are certain areas that are still being affected by, the Civil War when it came down to the split of the Confederacy and the Union. Now let me put that out there also. Here's another thing. The Civil War was never about human rights. It was never about, freeing slaves. The Civil War was about money. It was about capitalism. But we're going to go into that in another episode. But anyway, nevertheless, when it came down to me traveling, it put me in a mindset of understanding the possibilities of what I can do in my life and where I could go. Yeah, I can build here. I can build in the United States, but I don't necessarily have to build in the United States. I do want to build some things in the United States, but it won't be majority of the things that I will build in the United States. I have a plan on how I will use the United States, how the United States has used my ancestors. I have a plan. Obviously, that plan won't go against, national security or any of that bullshit. Don't worry, mind you, just understand that. It won't. I will do pretty much what others have done that's legal in the past. And that doesn't just include Black Americans, that includes Asian Americans, that includes Latino Americans, that includes Hispanic Americans, that includes white Americans, in the scope of being able to build in other areas, being able to build my legacy, what I'm saying, in various ways. So to be able to travel as a Black man, as a Black American man, to be able to travel to other countries opens you to a new mindset of the possibilities of what you can do with your life. What you can do with your life. And definitely, I'm going to be an advocate for conveying this to the next generations and to the brothers that obviously have gained a little age on them, but still have the capacity to be able to understand the paradigm that you are in is not your cage. With that said, we got another episode of the Pondering Forward series. You already know who I am. Frank out this piece. Y'all take it easy.